and I'd like to introduce you to the group and hand it over to you. And I'll share my screen here and let you all check that out, okay?
Thanks, Blaine. I appreciate the introduction, and thanks for having me tonight. My goal tonight is to very briefly give you guys kind of a 50,000-foot view of how your bonding capacity is calculated in Kentucky school districts. I always like to bring things down to a personal level and describe it as if I was trying to take out a loan to build a house for myself. I'm going to walk in the door at the local bank and sit down with the loan officer. And the first question, if you can turn to page 1, Dwayne, the first question the loan officer is going to ask, of course, they're going to want to know what debts that I've already got outstanding. And so on page 1, each column represents the principal and interest payments outstanding on various bond issues that have been issued in the past. And if you'll jump to the far right-hand column E, you'll see that for approximately the next 7 or 8 years, the sum of all outstanding bond payments are approximately $700,000 to $750,000. On the surface, to all of us, that's large numbers. However, if you'll turn to page 2, we'll go over the various revenue streams that are available and what they equate to in your district. Column B, this is referred to as the local nickel. Every district in the state has at least one of these. Also, your local taxing effort. It's equivalent to 5 cents per $100 of assessed property value. And in Nicholas County, you've actually got 2 of these. So column B represents $174,739. Column C, the second nickel, an additional $174,739. Column D, this is capital outlay. This is a formula within the SEEK formula that has not changed since the late 70s. It's simply $100 per student. And to be conservative, the Department of Education requires that of this number, we only use 80% of the total. I should back up and say that typically on a home mortgage, you're financing over a 30-year period. In Kentucky school finance, usually you're looking at a 20-year bond issue. And so I'm going to point out a few different ways that I'm conservative. If you enter into a new bond issue for 20 years, especially this day and time and in this part of the state, who knows what ADA is going to do in the future. And so as we lock in a potential new bond issue, we want to make sure we've been conservative and allowed for the potential that ADA may decline. This in column D, only using 80% of that revenue, that amounts to $73,000. That's just one way of being conservative. Column E, this is very unique. It's referred to as nickel equalization. I always use Campbell County as an example. Campbell, Boone County, they are so property rich, heavy industry, a lot of tax base. They receive such a large portion of their revenue from that local nickel in column B or C. So within the state's funding formula, column E is sort of a leveling mechanism. More rural districts with a lesser property base. The purpose of column E, the goal is to fund each student at a rate of 150% of the statewide per person average assessment. In other words, if we took the total property value of all property in the entire state and divided it by the number of students in the entire state, the goal is for column E to provide your district the same per student funding as other districts. And the example in Campbell County, they would not have a column E. They would have no revenue coming from column E or column F. I'm going to skip all the way to the far right-hand column, M. What I've skipped over, column J, K, and L, though, I actually should touch on, as it's pretty important to your purpose as a local planning committee. In addition to your local revenue, every 2 years you receive an offer of assistance from the School Facilities Construction Commission. So basically the General Assembly sets aside a pot of money. In the past has been as high as $100 million. That's been whittled down to half that now. They then look at every district's total amount of need that's identified on the facility plan. They plug all that into a spreadsheet and hand out offers of assistance pretty much on a pro rata basis based upon that pot of money and your portion of the pie as identified on your plan. So that's why it's important to identify as much legitimate need and put it on your facility plan as possible, even if you don't currently have the capacity to pursue those projects. It still has the effect of benefiting your district. Column M, that's the revenue that's left over, that's actually available. That's what you're sitting down at your local bank with, net of all of your expenses. Column M is the 20-year stream of revenue that you can afford to make bond payments on. And what all that means, if we turn to page 3, column C. So this is a hypothetical. First, also, let me back up and say all these revenue sources are very heavily restricted for building fund purposes. So it's important to make that distinction that, I'm pointing out in column C at the very bottom. Column C represents principal amounts on a hypothetical $5,750,000 bond issue. Well, it can be a little misleading. That doesn't mean that we can buy that many textbooks or hire additional teachers. It's, again, very, very restricted for building fund purposes only. But column C does represent the principal payments on a hypothetical bond issue. Column D represents the interest payments. Again, these are very conservative interest rates. If we were to issue bonds today, the rate would be almost half that. It seems like it takes almost a year from the start when you first start talking about a project to designing it. And so I don't ever want to be in a position where I come back a year later and have to explain and apologize that rates have increased and the bonding capacity of $5,750,000 is no longer available because rates have increased. So I've been a little conservative there as well. In summary, on page 4, inside the box shows that $5,750,000. Of that, the bullet point in the middle, the bonding capacity that would be paid by the School Facility Construction Commission equals $450,000. Those dollars can only be spent on a project that is identified as either a priority 1 or 2 on your facility plan. The bullet outside the box, just a general rule, a general conservative rule. Every 2 years, not only can you hope for an additional offer of assistance from the School Facilities Construction Commission, but also that nickel equalization mechanism. We typically see an increase in the funding formula there as well that would add roughly an additional $500,000 every 2 years to your bonding capacity. So again, I think the big picture is try to identify as much legitimate need as possible. Don't get hung up on the bonding capacity being not enough to cover everything. I mean, the good news is some districts that number is 0. Some far eastern Kentucky districts that have lost a lot of ADA would be a different kind of singing a different song. So I know that was a lot of information real quick. Anybody have any questions? Good deal. So kind of good news, bad news, but good news. We'll look at it positively. That's all I've got. If anybody has any questions or.
Thank you, Lincoln. If nobody has any questions for Lincoln, we'll dismiss you, Lincoln, and thank you again, and hope your power situation at your house and your area gets taken care of.
Thank you very much, and you guys as well. Thanks for having me.
See you,
Thank
buddy.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, so with nothing else on the agenda, does anybody have any questions about where we're heading and what we're doing? I think the next meeting next week, we'll have our architects back, G. Scott and Associates will be back, and also we'll actually see the DFP, the district facilities plan that we're gonna put together. Mr. Buchanan, do you have anything to add?
Well, I guess the way the process is supposed to work is the first process is the first meeting is kind of tell us about the process. This meeting is to tell us about what kind of money we have to work with.
Right.
And then the next meeting is when the architect comes back to us and says he sees our needs as this. And then from that, we determine what do we need to place as our top priority and what do we need to put on our facilities plan.
Right.
And it's pretty easy on a small district like this, where we've only got two school buildings that we could actually prioritize, and one being brand new. Really, it's a pretty easy process for us. If we were in a district of Jefferson County that might have 150 school buildings, it'd be very complex. But we're
All right.
all right.
With no questions, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Cameron. We have a motion by Kelly and second by Cameron. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll see you guys next week. Hopefully we'll be live and in person.
Right.
Get past all this stuff. So,
Okay.
if not, obviously I'll reach out to you guys and try to figure out a way to do it again. This ain't the best way, but when you have to,
Hey,
do
it worked.
yeah. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Have a safe trip home if you're out and about. If not, stay warm and I hope everything goes well tonight.
Good night, everybody.
Thank
See you
you.
guys.
Bye.
See you.
Buchanan, we'll hang on